G'day, guys. Welcome back to the Detour Live. I'm back on deck, relieved of kid duty, unlike last night. So thanks, Johnny, for stepping into the host plate. I'm, of course, Dan Jones, joined, as always, by four-time national road champion from Australia, Johnny Trevorrow. The voice of cycling, Phil Liggett. And as I said, appreciate you stepping in the host chair, John. But I must say, there's one criticism, mate, and you know my take on bullies. I thought there was one moment when you treated Scott McGrory with a bit of disrespect, mate. Now I've tried to reach out to Scooter. He's not answering his phone. He sent a text message back saying, "Yeah, no, a bit busy, mate." That was at about 10 a.m. this morning, and mate, it's going to take a bit of work to get him back on the show. I think he's rattled.
No, I spoke with him. He's fine. It was all in jest. People took it too serious. I was just stirring him up. You know me. I'm the softest guy around. I'm like a bully. Like you're the bully in this relationship. So anyway.
Phil, you've been in media a long time. How important is timing? You know, when you talk over people, it's not good for podcasts, for TV, for any form of media.
No, it isn't. I mean, when Paul was around with me, of course, we had our own system. I grabbed his knee. And he stopped talking, and then, of course, he put his finger in the air, and I stopped talking. We never tripped over each other. Well, I'm having a little bit of a problem with my co-commentator in America, Bobby Roll, but then we are 5,000 kilometres apart. So, you know, what can I say? Sometimes we do trip over each other.
Now, back to the race. That is one of the most dominating displays I've seen at the Tour de France. And look, you know, let's be honest, they're racing for second place. And is it sort of it's good and it's bad in the sense that we had this period where it was like, oh, anyone can win GC, you know, after Froome won 4, and you know we had all the other eras before that. But geez, we could be strapping ourselves in for, you know, 5, 6. You know, you never know. It's just another level, Phil.
It's another level, and yes, of course, I'm already getting emails and social media saying, well, let's all go home now. The tour's finished. There's no more action to come. That's not the Tour de France. Yes, we have an absolutely demonstrative leader in Pogacar, and he's 4 minutes ahead of any challenger at all of note, because I don't think Wout van Aert will remain in second place for much longer. But when you've got all the stars now looking to make 5 minutes or more up, it's a write-off for the win, I think. But then he's got to be careful. It's a long way to the finish, and is his team up to it? That's the other question. This isn't an Ineos Grenadiers team of old. So he may have his own problem. However, the way he rode that stage yesterday, he was in the old mould of the greats of the Tour de France. Men who just disappeared when the flag dropped, and they're only seen at the finish. Men like Eddie Merckx, Fausto Coppi, Jacques Anquetil. These were the men of the Tour in the old days. I'm rather pleased to see the Tour go back to the old days, I'll be quite honest. But today, for example, is a brute of a day. He can't do... I hope he can't do what he did yesterday today, because we have these horrible climbs today. The Col de Saisy is a brute. And then you've got an outside category called the Pré. The Cormet de Roseland, I'm amazed it's only second cat, and it's because we're coming pretty much off the Col de Pré to get to the top, otherwise it would be all categories. And then you've got the Monte up to Teen itself, where I've just had a call from an Aussie, actually, who's been keeping me, he's on the race route, and he sends me a WhatsApp every day in video showing me the climb, which is really proving helpful. And he says the weather forecast up on a team today is horrible. So who knows what will happen? I hope not floods and snow, but who knows what will happen?
Well, we caught up with...
I was just saying that, as we know, this was the stage 2 years ago, which was cancelled with the landslide or snowslide or whatever you want to call it, and so we're heading into. Hopefully, we'll get to the finish today.
We caught up with Matt White earlier today, and we'll bring his interview up later in the show. And he's obviously on the ground, and yeah, he said, you know, there's some parts that I think is 3 to 5 degrees, and then when you talk about other parts of France and Spain, that, you know, it's the middle of summer. So I think that's obviously adding to it. But you know, if you're on some of these other teams, that were originally going for GC, this must be mentally crushing. I saw some statements from Geraint Thomas, and he's had his setbacks, but just seeing the dominance of Pogacar and knowing, yeah, it's not looking good. It must crush you mentally.
Look,
Let's
you know what?
John,
Yes,
start with the hot
that's
news.
right, mate. Yeah.
Primoz Roglic. He's out.
Yes.
He's
Yeah.
Yes.
last hour. He's
Yeah,
gone.
well,
He was
yeah.
already gone from the classification, but I'm sorry to see him go. But he was riding the mountain off the back today, laughing at the crowd and smiling. He'd obviously made his decision when he got to the finish. That's the end of the road for me this year.
Yeah, no, it is sad. It was sad to watch him getting dropped so early yesterday. So I thought that might be his final stage looking at him. But look, this bike race will turn something up. It's too early to be saying it's all over. You know, you saw Pogacar last year lose a minute and a half in a side win. Now, look, I know he's 4.5 minutes to his closest real challenge, and I think the guy running third at the moment, Lutsenko, Alexei, a starter, the Kazakh, I reckon he is the major threat. He was very, very good. He ran second to Richie in the Dauphiné and looked good and strong. And he hasn't really shown what he can do yet, but his team's fairly strong. So I reckon they will plan something over the next couple of days. So I don't know what they can do right at the moment, but there will be something happens. And I think Jumbo will reassess. There's no doubt that Jonas Vingegaard will be their top man, even though Wout van Aert is running second. Vingegaard will be their man for GC, I reckon. And let's see what Ineos can do. I mean, Carapaz is obviously the guy. He couldn't hold Pogacar yesterday, but then nobody could. So he still will fight on, and you'll see him make an attack. And now that Richie has dropped around the time, I think we're going to have a wonderful chance. I reckon Richie could actually get in a break, get up the road today, and have a bit of a chance for a stage.
Good talk.
Well, one of the big issues as well is if you're a team, Phil, that goes in and you've got an owner or whoever that's bankrolling it saying, we want to win the Tour. Say Pogacar goes on to, all right, early crow, but say he goes on to win the Tour. And you've got these dominant riders that there's only a handful that can win the Tour de France. How does that change the dynamic with a lot of these owners going, well, if we can't secure the signature of these big names, is it worth, putting all the money and resources in when you know that to get to that level, it's just there's only a small handful that can do it?
Well, that's always been the way throughout the history of the Tour de France. Yes, if you're a big sponsor and you put a lot of money in, which of course they did into Ineos Grenadiers, that team is way ahead in the pay league than any other team in the world. But look what's happened to them. They're not in this race now anymore. I don't believe they're going to play a great part. They might win the odd stage, and I agree Richie Porte today might win for them, which would be nice. So the great thing about the bike race is it's not made for television. It is a true one-on-one bike race, and things can go wrong and might go wrong. But they always say you can win 20 races in the season, but if you don't win one stage of the Tour de France, you're fired. And that is still true to this day. But the big sponsors know how many people watch the coverage of the Tour de France around the world, and it's around 150 million people per day around the world. Those are big figures, and if you're selling a worldwide product, you want your boys to go front. Now you get a team like Lotto Soudal, who never had a winner coming to the lines this year, and they've lost the man who was supposed to win all the sprints and was looking great in Caleb Ewan. But you notice every day this team grabs time on television. Every day they're in the breakaway of the day, and we're always talking about them. That's what you've got to do. If you can't win the Tour, you've got to get your men in front of the TV cameras. Today, I think Pogacar done what he was very surprised at doing, but boy, it was a fantastic to commentate on. Surely on this stage today, if he went away over those mountains and did what he did yesterday, then we may as well all pack our bags. He'll lead by 10 minutes. That does not happen in the Tour de France. Today, he might look a little bit ordinary, and things might start to change around him. All the teams last night have been thinking, now, how do we beat this kid? His team's not that great. How are we going to start beating him? The way to beat him is to get the attacks running very early on and make him have to make decisions. And as John said, he is fallible. He did make mistakes last year, but at his age, he's entitled to make mistakes. Now he's got a win under his belt. He might be a much more mature rider. But hey, I still think this Tour de France, I'm not closing the book on it. We may have the yellow jersey all the way to Paris on the same guy's shoulders, but we will have reports to talk about every day. The one we didn't talk about yesterday and wasn't worthy of it, I suppose, but the last man to finish yesterday was the sprinter Arnaud Demar. He got inside the time limit on his own, just inside 2 minutes to spare. If we'd had a camera on that man trying to get over those mountains to beat the time limit, he must have thought, I'm not going to make it. And he got in with 2 minutes to spare before they kicked him out of the Tour. And he'd probably be winning the stage in the next week of the Tour, somewhere on that way. So, yeah, there's always something to find to talk about.
Yeah. Oh, well, something to talk about. I finally got a reply. Scooter, you're back. Mate, I thought you were done.
Well, I still may be. I'm not sure yet.
Now listen. We're trying to build a good culture on this show, and it's all built around respect. Now, John, is there something you'd like to say?
I've already apologised, Scooter. It was just in jest, but you keep bringing it up because you love to stir the pot. Scooter and I are fine. You're just the ultimate shit stirrer, Dan.
No. I spoke to Sam Bewley last night with about 50K to go, and the first thing he said to me, he goes, "Yeah, watch the detour tonight, bro. Yeah, Johnny did a good job hosting, but geez, he's a bit bloody harsh on Scooter." First thing.
First thing. Can I just say, yeah, John and I are obviously good mates, but you asked him to apologise then, and all he said was, "Dan, you're just stirring the pot." He didn't actually apologise. No,
and he won't. He won't. I think they categorise those people.
Don't you upset Scotty. I've got to work.
Moving on.
Okay. I'll run through a couple of viewer comments. We'll just quickly bang through these. Carolyn, g'day, gents. Kirsty Baxter. Now, Kirsty gave us the odds. Michael Woods at one point there, that was looking pretty good. I think it was about $11. He put up a pretty good ride.
I got him to win yesterday, by the way. I got some progress in the competition here. Yeah.
Well, that's good. Stuart McCulley said, amazing to watch. Now, David's a bit like iffy. One bad day, you never know, especially with an average team. Scooty, do you have any insights on what went wrong for Team Ineos yesterday? Prasad wants to know.
Oh, as in what went wrong because we saw the almost fisticuffs at the end there with Kwiatkowski, Enric Mas and Valverde having a real go at Kwiatkowski. I've been actually looking to try and find out what it was that went on there, but I think Mikel must have been getting in the way of Movistar chasing down Carapaz, which is a standard thing to do, but there was apparently a dangerous incident that may have happened. They may have thought Kwiatkowski almost caused a crash or did cause a crash or something like that. So still waiting to get to the bottom of that, because there was a video after the stage from last night where they were really having a ding-dong, yelling, screaming match at each other. So it's unusual to see that. Waiting to see if the truth will come out. Unfortunately for Geraint Thomas, you know what I'll say about this, Geraint Thomas? I was listening to a podcast with G not that long ago, actually. I was writing Zwift. It's one of these Olympic podcasts that they've been running just recently. And he was on with Tom Bonin, and Tom was trying to convince G to at least go for Paris-Roubaix before he gets too old or retires, give up the GC for a bit and go for Paris-Roubaix. And now with Paris-Roubaix being postponed towards the end of this season, Geraint's now off GC. Maybe he's going to focus on that one-day classic for later this year. So watch this space and see if Geraint Thomas now refocuses to try and have a real crack at Paris-Roubaix, because it is a race that he does really love and would love to try and do well in.
That's a bloody good insight. That wasn't on the run sheet. This is fantastic.
Is there a run sheet?
No.
We've got a run sheet. I haven't seen a run sheet.
No. It's just copy and paste.
Well, I've got another one. This one, unless you've already got this dialed in, Phil, but I did see also that there were two things about tonight's stage. The first climb, which is the category 2, it has some really steep, nasty pinches in it. That's where Bernard Hinault in 1980 launched his attack to go solo and win the World Championships. It was up that first climb. That's a bit of history there. Obviously, Bernard Hinault on the tour still. And finishing in Tignes, which is very, it's a famous, and I love my snow skiing, right? And Tignes is a very famous ski resort. Just nearby, they're interconnected, is also Val d'Isère, and the two resorts combined are called L'Espace Killy, named after Jean-Claude Killy, who was one of the greats of the Winter Olympics and skiing. Now, Jean-Claude Killy won 3 gold medals at 1 Olympic Games in Grenoble in 1968. The connection to cycling is that he was an ambassador and a spokesperson for the Schwinn bicycle company in America. That's how popular he was after becoming a superstar skier. So for the American audience, that would be a good connection.
Thank you. But also, Jean-Claude Killy was the president of the Tour de France organization for quite a few years. So,
yeah. And he's very good friends with another president. He's very good friends with another president, Vladimir Putin.
Well, what can we say about that?
From left field, but yeah, he's mates with the Vlad.
Well, all I can say is he's not putting all his eggs in one basket. That's all I can say.
Scooter, I rode that world title in when Hinault won in Solange, and I remember the first lap was the fastest lap of the whole damn bike race, and really put the hammer down along with one of the Belgies. And I remember the reigning world champion didn't even make it to the top of the first climb. As we turned right at the top of the hill, he turned left and went to the hotel.
Wow.
And that's unusual, John, because the pros, especially back then, such long races at the Worlds, the tradition was slow the first few laps and then incredibly fast at the end. Unusual that they lit it up so early.
Yeah, they did. The Belgie who won the Giro, I just can't think of his name at the moment, he was really strong on the first lap as well. And, the reigning world champion was the Dutchman sprinter from
Jan Ross?
Jan Ross, He actually, reigning world champion, turned left, went to the hotel, didn't even finish the first.
That does not surprise me. Jan cannot climb hills. He could never get over the Pyrenees to ride the Tour de France with success either. But the other guy that went well that day was Robert Miller, a.k.a. Philippa York now. But Robert Miller was brilliant that day. I commentated on that race. And I must say, I don't recall mentioning your name, John.
No, it was another iffy story. I remember I had to dive in the pits lap 3. I had some derailleur problems. My brother was trying to fix my bike. He just arrived over there for a holiday with his girlfriend, and one of the team cars ran over his foot. So he spent the whole day in a French hospital getting put in plaster. But anyway, it's another story. Yeah.
Okay, back to a viewer question. This is for you, Phil and John. You've watched so much cycling. Which was the last time you saw such a dominating performance, not just in the mountains, but individual time trial as well? Start with you, Phil.
Well, in the time trial, they're not too uncommon because we've had the great time trialists in the Tour de France, and Miguel Indurain was the master of the time trials. He never won a road race stage of the Tour de France during his reign as getting 5 straight wins, but he did win before he started his season to the stage. He was a master of the time trial for sure. A bit boring, really, because I remember when he rode past Lance Armstrong, and Armstrong couldn't believe anybody had caught him. He just went straight by him. On the lone breaks, do you ever remember that fantastic break by Claudio Chiappucci, which was in the Alps? I think I can't remember the year. It was in the 90s.
It was the Sestriere.
It's Sestriere, that's correct, it was. Yeah. He rode right across the borders into Italy, and he's Italian, of course, and it was an incredible bike ride that day. Mind you, 2 years later, I saw him finish on the hill and almost die on the spot. He was so far behind. But that was one memorable breakaway. In the days, as well as millions of them.
Merckx and Hinault, are probably the last riders who have been so dominant in both, in the time trial and in the mountain stage. I remember one year where Hinault won by quite a few minutes, and Merckx. But look, they only a couple of years ago we had a 22-year-old winner, and they were talking about who's ever going to beat this guy over the next 3 or 4 years. Well, he hasn't been able to. Of course. Yeah.
The way he went so far out. I thought, what's he doing going so early for? He went on the climb before the last climb. So what is he doing? But then, and Carapaz was right with him, but he just rode Carapaz into the sunset. And he just continued. An incredible tempo he had. He was riding on his top chainring and bottom gear on the bike. As he kept the tempo going. Yeah. And he just went. And did you see that when as he came to the end of the climb, he took a bottle, but it wasn't the bottle he was taking, that was just a grip. He had his gel bar taped on the outside of the bottle, took the gel bar off, got rid of the bottle, so he got his food as well. This kid is right there in the world of cycling. And when he continued on, at first we were commentating on him just getting time on the rest. Then we suddenly thought, I thought there was nobody going to catch Michael Woods. And then we suddenly saw Michael begin to struggle. And then this guy's rhythm never ceased. He just picked them off one by one, just going past them. It never broke his rhythm. They tried to get his wheel. They couldn't even raise the sprint to grab his wheel as he went by them. It was a brilliant demonstration. And of course, he's got 10 more years in the Tour de France. Oh, my God. Yeah,
you know, one point not to underestimate the effect, and that is the magician who's working behind the scenes, Alan Piper. You know, he said pre-tour that he was ahead of his notes, and I think we mentioned on the show that stage 8 alone, he had 22 pages of notes. So imagine how much preparation, knowing, you know, where to attack, when to go, assessing all his rivals, all this sort of stuff. I mean, that'd have to have a huge effect, with that much preparation going in every stage.
Yes, I doubt that he would have written down that today should have attacked 35
I sent him a message live and said, was this part of the plan? He's going to shit at him. He said, no, he loves this sort of condition. So.
Yeah, he does. He said that. But look, UAE Team Emirates were actually a little bit better yesterday than the day before. Everyone was talking about how, look, the team's not going to be able to do much for him. They actually set him up quite strong. McNulty is going quite strong, and they actually put him in a position he attacked off the front of that. So maybe they've regrouped and getting their act back together a little bit.
All right, I've got a couple more comments I can just quickly go through. Dave Adderley sounds like a true bully. Talking about you, John. You just bang on. Ryan says, is Pogacar bad in the heat? Like, we know he's good in the bad weather, but how's he go in the heat, Scooter? I don't think that'd be an issue, would it?
Well, don't really know. Last year's tour was a bit warmer, wasn't it? And he seemed to get through that okay. So, we'll just have to see when they get into the Pyrenees, of course.
Well, if it's any consolation for you, Scotty, you don't need to know today. It's raining all day and it's very cold.
But how ironic is that? Like, it's raining, it's cold, and this is the stage that the ASO promised to put back in the race because it was cut short last time when Egan Bernal, John was mentioning before, ended up winning the Tour because he was away, and this was the mudslide day from 2019. So it's back in the race, and it's raining in bad weather, so it could happen again. It should be.
Don't say that.
Now, Scott Davies.
I had a problem getting my car out after those floods. It was in a field up to its axles in water. So we don't know. Hey, I've just realised I'm actually on the floor. I've got no problems. It's fine. Let it rain.
Scott Davies says, good insight, Scooter. Maybe John should just have a crack each night if this is the response.
Yeah. Just watch my mental state go down. Your car was
our viewers are getting into this now.
Bill, your car's been flooded almost, and it's also been blown up. So I think you're safer to stay at home in future. Don't go to the Tour.
Well, the only good news is they were never my cars, which was a great relief. They were always loaned us by the companies who I was amazed kept loaning them to us every year, and we kept sending them back rather the worse for worse. Well,
Johnny Trevorrow has a good track record of that. He had a couple of loan cars from Volvo back in the day at the 2007 Tour de France, and pretty much ended the sponsorship when he dropped them off.
Oh, we've had to move sponsors and move rental companies a couple of times, but hey, you like to spread the love.
All right, Michael
spread the damage. Spread the damage, you mean?
Speaking of odds, I just put $5 on a run at $34. Obviously, something would have to happen to the Pog, but $1.08 with 170 odd riders still in the race is unbelievable. That is by far the shortest odds for a GC rider at the Tour after 8 stages. That is unbelievable. And then
somebody like Uran will pull a stage win off, I think.
I'm not sure if I should run this comment from Jason Cruz in the Maldives, but out of fairness and balance, he says, for stage wins, UK 2, Australia 0. When is the next stage where we could possibly see an Aussie stage win, Johnny?
Today.
Today.
Yeah, Richie Port for today. Yeah, he's dropped right back now. He's far enough back on GC that they let him go. He gets in the break today. The stage. Yep.
All right, then it'll be 2-1, and then we'll level it, and then we'll hopefully pull ahead. But Cavendish, once it gets on the flats, look out. Tony Tanner says, gents, what did you make of the reactions of the cyclists as today went past them one by one on the last two mountains? This was awesome. The double takes and staring at him in awe, wondering if he was human. Phil, what was it like commentating in those moments?
Sorry, I missed the bottom line of the question there, Dan.
He said the double takes and staring at him in awe. So when he was passing all those riders on the climb and you knew he was coming, and they were sort of like look and go, what? It was almost like a moto with the camera guy on the back. He was going that quick.
I saw him pass one of the riders, and he was on the inside, on the left side. The rider's on the far right by a wall climbing hill. And he took a double take when he saw the white jersey Pogacar coming up past him. Made no attempt whatsoever to go after him. He just saw how fast this kid was climbing, and he just gone into the. I called him the White Tornado. I think I called him on television.
I think that was Isagar when he went past Isagar. He got what the? He just
and Jonathan Izagirre did a very good ride yesterday because he crashed as well, like Overgaard did, and he was in the action right to the end. So that's off to him. This guy's just making everybody look very ordinary right now.
Well, from a technical nature, it was like 6.5 watts per kilo or something on when he did go, Phil, when he was going past those riders, and that's, for those that don't understand the watts per kilo situation, it's extraordinary. Yeah, and it is. But that's what they're all, it's such a big thing these days. It's always been a big thing, but it's only now that we started to understand what it all means. But it's just superhuman, which is what he is. He's the best of the best, and he's extraordinary to be able to put out that sort of power.
There is one rider who will beat Pogacar to Paris, and Samantha's reminding us, and that's Lockie Moore.
Yes.
Interesting take. Lockie's it's an interesting take because he's doing a great thing. He's raising heaps of money for, I think it's World Bicycle Relief or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So it's bringing in so much money, which is amazing. It's awesome, and it's a great adventure that he's doing. Now, on the other side of that, it also kind of signals the end of his career. Because if he's not preparing for the Vuelta, he's not doing something within the Tour de France itself with this team, and they're allowing him to go and do this amazing adventure, which is great. And I'm a bit of a romantic. I wouldn't mind doing something like this myself, if it didn't rain for the whole time.
Oh, John would go with you, Scotty.
Yeah, maybe we could
on his electric bike, like he did that year.
But I think it also does probably signal that his professional cycling career is coming towards a close, that the team is okay with him doing this. As I say, it's a great thing that he's doing. He's raising lots of money, which is awesome, but it does also signify that he's not preparing to be the best he can be and go as fast as he needs to be. So watch this space. And I do know from a couple of years ago, he started doing the gravel rides, Dirty Cans and all these big races in America, and the other endurance races, Phil, that he's been doing, and those sorts of events. And the response that the Rafa videos were getting and the coverage they were getting from these events that Lockie was doing actually outweighed Bettiol, who riding for that team, won the Tour of Flanders. They did a video for that event, and Lockie was getting more views for these gravel adventures that he was doing than their own rider doing the Tour of Flanders got. And they realised, well, okay, what's our job really? Is it a job to actually win races? Yes. But is it to get exposure for our sponsors? Absolutely. Yes. Lockie was doing that. So they realised that, we need to let him keep doing what he's doing because it's working. But I just think as a pro cyclist, he's probably coming to a close, unfortunately.
I saw a tweet yesterday which showed him he was climbing a hill towards the end of the day, really knackered, looking forward to getting to his little tent. But he was a bit upset because he'd ridden 4 kilometres up this climb and realised he'd read the GPS the wrong way. He'd done a detour. He had to go back down, go up there. He got the wrong way up the hill.
Well, you can't laugh. That's awful. I can imagine the poor guy's living as a unit. He's not staying in hotels. He's not mixing with anyone. He's in the bubble by himself. And imagine pitching your tent on top of Teen tonight. It's exposed and it's raining and it's miserable and it's cold. His bike will try to get in bed with him, I'll tell you. It's so miserable out there. But last I heard, he'd done 2,000 kilometres, so he's getting himself ahead of the Tour now. His schedule is to finish 6 hours before the Tour de France on the Champs-Élysées. I think he's on schedule, but he has to gain the miles by riding through the rest days. So there's no rest for him tomorrow. He will move on tomorrow on his bike.
Well, Scooter, we used to stay in a lot of tents at the Tour de France if he was booking the accommodation.
Not by choice, not by our own choice, no. Whereas Lockie's actually doing that, isn't he? No, I think
it's time to go now, John.
I told you at the start of the tour it was going to be intense. Be ready, guys. It's going to be intense. So there you go.
intense. Can we tell that story? Can we tell remember that
piggery?
No, we don't. Look, that's the old days, mate. But when this
hang on. Watch this. Scooter, watch this. I can mute John's mic. So he's muted.
Oh,
you can
really?
talk now.
Okay.
Go
there
for
is
it.
a new audience. They need to hear all these stories
Yeah,
because
go for
they
it.
don't know the hardships that you and I have gone through, Dan, at the behest of John.
Yeah. The long story, the short version of it is John was booking the accommodation one year, and he says to us the morning of, he goes, fellas, I might have a drama. And we go, what's the drama? Your accommodation. Well, that's not good because last night's was terrible and there was no dramas. And he goes, yeah, it's been a mix-up, but I'll sort it. I'll sort it by the end of the day. We get to the end of the day, and he goes, I've got you in a joint. This farmhouse is taking you in. Jerry's going to be staying with you. And we're like, oh, hang on. And Jerry pulled out the last minute, thank God. We rolled up there, Scooter, and we were in a piggery.
Yeah.
Like, piggery.
Yep. Toilet didn't work.
Toilet didn't work. Yeah, it was the first toilet I've ever seen that was run on electrics. Like, it was literally plugged in on a power socket. Didn't work. And then we went for breakfast the next day. And
but John, but Dan, when did we find out the toilet didn't work? It was after I'd actually gone to the toilet. And I was busting to go to the toilet, and it wasn't number one. Yeah. Then we found out afterwards that, we were sleeping in the same room as the toilet.
Which country was it in France?
France, yeah.
It could have been Turkmenistan, to be honest.
Well, if it was in France, it's a good job it didn't fall in the toilet. You could have had a toilet.
The next morning, it was a continental breakfast, Phil, so I'm sitting there eating my cornflakes, and then all of a sudden I see one black cornflake, and I'm thinking, that's not normal. And I look up, and there was this strip, and it was jet black because it was a strip to attract the flies and, get them all to stick.
Yes,
one dropped in, I thought, it's time to check out. So anyway, we'll bring you in, John. None of that was obviously, hang on, now I can't unmute him. There you go.
Well,
it's all true.
If we're going to talk about bad accommodation, you can't all blame John on this, I'll tell you, because I worked for the best television company in the UK for many, many years, and they had a problem with hotels, but they gave us a new address. It was in Liège, and it wasn't far from the railway station. Now, hotels around the railway station, normally first class. We arrived there. We should have got a clue when there was a red light over the door, but we went in and we took our room, and of course, it was a brothel.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Now, most people would run away. I stayed.
now,
we told a bad story about accommodation. Yours is a brilliant story. It's never ends.
I didn't actually. Well, I did say, but it was the best breakfast we had on the whole tour, and he could not understand. We were booked for 2 nights. He couldn't understand why we were leaving after breakfast. We never went.
The one town though you never stay in is Lourdes in France because
you're in trouble there.
Yeah, that's obviously a pilgrimage for a lot of people, but yeah, that's
plenty of hotels.
It is the saddest place on the planet. It just I don't know. I don't like that place at all. It's not nice. Yeah, there's just too many shonks in there trying to, people at their absolute worst going there to try and get miracles so they can, be cured. And you've got so many people that are basically just taking it for a run.
Yeah.
There's probably 176 riders in the Tour de France staying there last night hoping for a miracle.
Yeah, exactly. Now, we'll talk about Lachlan Morton and his cause earlier. Another great cause, Iffy. Careca.
Yes. You're going to impress you when you meet her on Tuesday.
Yep, and there's Tandy, of course, with a little sibling. Now, I did an update, Phil, for the donations, and you're almost at 13,000 now, 12,732.
Oh, wow.
Need those to keep coming in, guys, because it's a great cause.
For you guys as well who watch this podcast, so we keep your email addresses.
Yep, and that email address is kariega.co.za/Peloton. Any donation is very appreciated.
This might be going on for a year, not this particular adventure. This will end obviously soon, but we're planning on, Phil's African Safari has grown a nice peloton of people now. And when we do them normally, I'm online riding with them, and we talk and we interview the people like the vets, etc. And we talk and I've got friends suddenly appearing now all over the world, and the Oz have been among the best supporters. And
get a phone call.
She's now calling me. So sorry about that, guys. You can cut me off if you like.
Oh, mate, we'll let you go, Phil. You can.
No, you come back. You can come back.
Yeah, just mute
We'll
my
mute him for a
mic.
minute.
All right, we'll mute your mic. There you go. Voice is cycling, Phil. I think it's a good time to. You back in. Oh, yeah. Sorry, mate.
Yeah, I missed the call. I was talking too much as you.
Perfect. But you've got work to do anyway, mate. And your phone's running red hot. And as we always say,
today's stage. Let's look at it. Today's stage, very quickly, is going to be a fantastic stage. Look at this. I don't even think Cav will get to that sprint with the Côte d'Omancy, as John said, and Scotty used in the World Championships back in 1980, and then over that sprint point, we're on to the Col de Cizé and the Col de Pré. The two well-known climbs in the Tour, but the weather at the tops of every one is as miserable as it can be. And the climb to the finish line is the high spot of the Tour so far, at 1,557 meters. And it's still 2 kilometers over the top of the climb to the finish line. So it's not he who gets to the top first is the winner today.
It's going to be an interesting one. We've always enjoyed your insights, Phil, on the program. Appreciate it, mate. Good luck calling today's stage and enjoy a well-deserved rest day. But we will probably still bug you tomorrow because the punters love it. And on tomorrow's show, we will announce the winner, Iffy, for the $500 best question for the first week.
Oh, get your donations in quick then. A motorhome voucher, Iffy.
That's right.
You can wreck.
Let's go motorhome. So, come on, ask a really, really interesting question tonight, and you could be winning a $500 Let's Go motorhome voucher. Thanks to our very, very great sponsors.
Yeah, all right, absolutely. All right, boys. Well, it's lovely to be a contented team tonight. You really live in the moment now. You're not falling out. It's a good time.
Well, we did have a comment from Alan. He said, "You guys are just so harsh. John does a great trip. Great
on your Skull. He's done a couple of tours, Skull, and he knows. I mean, we all have a bad day. You guys like to exaggerate.
We do. They're always funny. There's always a story.
Yeah. You can't have two in a row. You can't have two in a row.
Well, Johnny, and this is to your credit, but remember the one, I think it was in Colmar when Heinrich Hausler won the stage. So we're all on a high. It's a beautiful city. Heino gets the win. We're all happy. He's very emotional. This is great. You tell us that we're staying at the finish, so in the town of Colmar. So, all right, Party Central. This is going to be fantastic. And then we get to the accommodation, and they couldn't find the booking. Where was the booking? Couldn't, and then they happened to then go to, this was, I don't know, say 16th of July.
No,
and then by chance,
that's fine, but you're mixing up your stories, mate. Because it wasn't Colmar. Because the day in Colmar, we were in the most amazing little place where Al had all the best wine. So you
remember it.
I do, but it wasn't Colmar. It wasn't Colmar. Anyway,
and then they changed the month to the 16th of August. Oh yes, Mr. Trevorrow, there's the booking. It was the wrong month, but you got us in very nearby, so we still stayed in the finishing town, which is pretty good.
No, it was worse than that. It was much worse than that because Ron Gower got us in, and I've never heard the end of it. Never heard the end of it. Anyway, it's another story.
All right, well, now it's time for a quick word from our great mates at Let's Go Motorhomes and Bike Exchange.
The Let's Go Motorhomes app has everything at the tip of your finger. From car parks to campgrounds, tips and tricks. The app makes your road trip smoother. This is the way to go. Download the Let's Go Motorhomes app today.
Look at this bike. You think it's just a bike, right? But it's not. It's a bike 374 people are looking at. This guy, this girl, them, all looking at it. People from here, there, and wherever this is. People that are looking for a bike. or just a piece of it. Amateurs, semi-amateurs, and pro-amateurs. This guy wants this bike, but with this crank and these bars. This could be the perfect match. But not this one. This girl has a bike to sell, and thousands of people might purchase it. Eyes on Bikes help grow small businesses. His, hers, yours, and the latest data and insights help those businesses keep moving. We are the world's #1 bike marketplace, with over 500,000 products and 900 brands, where buyers and sellers are brought together in a place where a bike is never just a bike. Bike Exchange, where the world buys, sells, learns, and rides.
Thanks again to our great mates at Let's Go Motorhomes and Bike Exchange. Now, the women's Giro's on, and much like the men's, sounds like a pretty dominant display from Anna van der Breggen's scooter.
Yeah, her SD works first, second, and third on the stage, but they didn't come to the finish together. They, Anna just rode away from everybody, won by a minute 22 seconds to Ashley Moolman, then Demi Vollering in third place as well at 1:50. So she put on a clinic. The team are incredibly dominant. They were second in the team time trial, but only by 8 seconds. But they just cleaned everybody up. They went up the climb to Prato Navoso, and Amanda Spratt, a little bit further down, she was 3 minutes down on the stage and did lose some time, obviously, in the opening team time trial, but she was 8th on the stage at 3 minutes. Now, we know how good Spratty is. 8th on the stage, 3 minutes down. That just shows you how strong Anna van der Breggen is. And isn't it interesting? You know, this is her last season. She's going out on a high. She's winning everything. She's the world champion. And I've said this before on here, that she's going into a management role within cycling, which is great, but she's only doing that because she's not getting paid enough to have an extended career as she would if she was a man. And the men's peloton, they get paid enough. If you're winning this much and you still love the sport, you just keep going because people will keep paying you. But Anna and anyone in the female peloton are just not getting paid anywhere near enough for the effort that they're putting in compared to the men. It's the same amount of effort, but they just don't get the rewards financially. So she's decided to move on to actually start making some real money, and that's a real shame.
Yeah, no, she is a superstar, but it's good to see it changing. I mean, I think there's 3 of the women's teams now who have set the wage for the women is the same as the minimum for the men, so that's fantastic. I know that Team Bike Exchange are one of those, and Movistar, and I've got a feeling.
Trek.
Yeah, Trek's another one. So that's fantastic to see, and it is all changing. The racing's getting better, prize money's being lifted as well. So it's just. It take them a while to get their mojo going. The UCI are starting to really switch on to women's cycling, which is fantastic to see.
Yep, no, I do agree. There's an interesting debate, though, isn't it, about this is the biggest race. The Giro della Donna is their biggest race, and it always clashes with the men's Tour de France. Now, we've got the women's Tour de France coming next year, or coming back next year, because we have had that in the past. But it's always interesting that they have the biggest women's race on at the same time as the Tour de France, because there's so much attention around the Tour. You can't help but think that the Giro della Donna actually gets a little bit lost in that, which probably hasn't helped them in the past. But you're right, John. It is growing. I think for someone like Anna van der Breggen, with her retirement coming, it might be that she was just in that previous generation, and the actual reward does start to come as we go forward, as things grow so much more for the women's peloton. Bit kind of like Phil Anderson in the 80s, such a pioneer for Australian cycling. But in terms of what he was getting paid, it pales in comparison to what some of even just the Aussies now that are in the peloton. Besides Richie, besides Michael Matthews, Cadel Evans, these guys. Phil earned less money back then than some of the domestiques that are riding for Australia at the moment. Things have just moved on so much, and hopefully that does happen in the women as well.
What sort of dollars could you earn with 4 national titles, Iffy?
I think I was on about 25 grand a year when I was racing for a team over there, which was probably a little bit better than I could earn for a wage back here. But the payment for pro cycling back in those days, in the 70s, was absolutely terrible. There was a handful of really big names who got paid a lot of money, and everyone else, you just got what you got, and there wasn't much negotiations going on.
Yeah, but I think Bernard Hinault when Lavie Claire that team, as a super team, was kind of like the Ineos of the day in the mid-'80s. I remember hearing something like $450,000 is what Hino got, which was like mind-blowing amounts of money. That was by far, more than double whatever the second highest paid rider was getting at the time. That's how much money it was. And $450 these days, obviously, which is great money. Gee, I would have liked to have earned that as well in my career. But they're earning so much more now, which is great.
Paul Anders says, "What's up, legends? I normally listen to the podcast, but seeing the live YouTube feed hurts my eyes." It's a bit of a clip. Keep up the good work. Annette Miller says, "Pity the highlight package for the ladies Giro Stage 2 was not good marketing of women's racing. It lacked the commentary to cite the viewer. It needed Keno." Now that's a good point, because if you're going to cover it in an hour package, cover the last 15 Ks. Make sure that you go into it and you've got a good plan on how you're going to cut it up, how you're going to jazz it up. You do your pre-packages. You've worked on a lot of these sort of things, Scooter. It's not just going, let's just cover the last 15 Ks and try and fill it either side. You should have a lot of colour leading into that, all pre-packaged, ready to go.
Yeah, you would think so. And I do, like at the moment, I'm doing the highlights packages for the National Road Series here in Australia. And, we go through in detail how we're going to make this as interesting as possible. And when you're commentating it, especially on your own, it's very different. People may not understand that when you commentate something on your own, it's very difficult to get the highs and the lows that you really need to make it interesting commentary. That, we watch the Tour de France and you've got two here in SBS for Australian coverage. We have 3 commentators. So you get a real difference in the commentary as it goes through. And then you sort of get carried through the stage with all the highs and lows and the different voices, the way they come and go. When you do it on your own, it's really different to that sort of situation. And you have to understand the craft of a commentator to really understand and deliver what is an exciting package. And it does appear that the Giro didn't do a great job on that, but it's also, I guess, the side aspect of having good commentary in other events. And then when you go and see what they've done for the Giro, you just get, it's quite critical. And if you go back 12 months, and the Giro were getting heavily criticised for not having any live coverage at all, and they were taken off the World Tour calendar because of that. So there's still some big challenges that they have, and it's having the budget or the willingness to have within your budget the commitment to make sure you employ the right production company and the right commentators to do a good job to deliver your event, to make sure it gets the exposure that it deserves, so that you get more revenue from sponsors going forward. It's pretty simple, isn't it?
Well, there was a viewer question that I think I forgot to run early on in the piece that said really long sports like cricket, they have commentary teams. So they do 1.5 hour sort of shifts. And I think they might do that with Eurosport. They might bring in different groups. Why isn't that something that's more common in cycling, Scooter?
Well, it started out with cycling. It was always just, one commentator typically. And if you're talking about the English commentary, when I first went to Europe, Eurosport, was Dave Duffield, just one guy the whole time through, and he'd talk about some crazy, bizarre stories because he's there on his
Smell
own.
Smell the roses.
Talk about his time in the army, in the army for England, and being based in Italy when the jolly old Giro d'Italia was on, and it came through the town that he was in, and all these just crazy old stories. So it has evolved beyond that. But yeah, you're right. Eurosport and Global Cycling Network, they bring in multiple commentators. So you do get that revolving door of voices, of opinions. And as the commentators go back out and they bring in 2 new ones, they then have the opportunity to actually get on the internet, make some phone calls, send a few text messages, and get more up-to-date information as well. So when they come back in the commentary seat, they've got relevant, up-to-date information, which really does benefit the broadcast, I think. And I think it comes down to budget. If you've got the budget to have multiple commentators, then you do it the way they do in cricket. And I think that is the best way of doing it. And then you've just got to make sure you take the egos out of it and you allow multiple voices to come in, because everybody offers something different.
Good luck with that. I met David Duffield just near he's not with us anymore, but near the end of his career. And he was a friend of the O'Grady's. We were just having a bit of a chat. And I said, listen to your commentary, whatever. And I said, did you used to race, Dave? He was offended. He said, yes, I was 6 times national champion.
You offended another person.
On a tricycle. That says everything.
Yeah. So no, you didn't. So you didn't race, David. No. I remember. I do remember him telling a story. It was about they hit 1 kilometre to go in Gent-Wevelgem, I think it was, one year, and they had the aerial shot. They've gone through 1 kilometre to go, and he started going on with this story about something else. And I'm just looking at the TV thinking, mate, they're in the last K. Tell us what's going on. Yeah. And he was caught up in some other story. And and when you have another commentator there, they can whack you on the shoulder and say, "Oi, come on, this is it. We've got to do this." But still, hey, he embraced it. He loved it. And look, Eurosport now, you've got the big voice of Carlton Kirby, who didn't race, doesn't know really cycling, but he just throws in all these comical lines and one-liners, and which is a bit interesting. And then you've got guys like Rob Hatch, who are just absolute experts and speak 6 languages, pronounces every name and every town and every city of every country in Europe absolutely perfectly, and knows all the riders and lives it and breathes it as well. So you've got a real mixed bag.
Well, we caught up with Matt White earlier today, and we have breaking news in the interview with Whitey regarding the commentary lineup for SBS tonight. So stay tuned. Joined again by Team Bike Exchange Head DS, Matt White. Whitey, obvious standout from yesterday was how strong Tadej Pogacar, we've got the correct pronunciation now, in this race. Is it really just you've seen enough to know that the GC teams are racing for second?
Pretty much. That ride yesterday is one of the most impressive rides we've seen in modern cycling. Really, what he made the rest of the field look like juniors, and no one had an answer. Not a team, not an individual had an answer to his strength in the mountains yesterday.
We were all impressed. How did Lucas go? I saw he lost a bit of time there. So how is he?
He's all right, mate. He's obviously disappointed. We'll have to look at what how he approached the tour as far as the run-in, but something is not right. But it's a long way to go. The GC is obviously over for him, and we just change the focus now, and we concentrate on him getting in with the guys, helping our day-to-day plan, and looking for some opportunities to next week when we go back into the second range of mountains in breaks.
Now, I was surprised to see Yatesy get into the break again yesterday, or because he looked like he'd spent a lot of pennies, and I thought he would have just sat back and tried to take it a bit easier. Although it wasn't a day yesterday where you could do that, but he actually impressed me yesterday. I thought he fought back well.
Yeah, look, again, we wanted to cover stuff as a team, and he is a natural racer, and. Things could have gone a different way on that final climb, but one thing for sure, he won't be looking for any moves this morning.
And what about Chavez? How's Chavez holding up after the first 8 stages?
Not too bad, mate. Not too bad. I think now he's off, even though he still is up there in the GC battle to a certain extent. I think he's going to have the freedom to move there. Because he isn't a direct threat with those guys in the top 10. So it'll be interesting. Today the weather's going to be nasty, real nasty today. I think we've got temperatures as low as 5 degrees today. It's going to be raining on and off. I woke up a couple of hours ago and it was perfectly blue sky, and now it's coming real cloudy and dark clouds already. We've still got a couple of hours from the start, but it's going to be a pretty epic day today. So it's pretty simple. The plan for us is we're going after that intermediate sprint again, and then after that, if Esteban moves on with a group after that, well then so be it. Otherwise, he'll be following, and we'll be having a quieter day and with a rest day tomorrow. And we've got a lot of opportunities in that second week, so we can't be. Simon can't be going in the break 3 days in a row. Lucas is going to have an easier day, so we can reset and focus on next week. And our big boys, it's just too hard a day for them to go up the road today.
Geez, the only beneficiary of the 5 degrees is your BlackBerry, mate.
It is. No chance of overheating today. No chance of overheating today, mate.
I noticed, I was just going to say, that you mentioned a few times so far that it really does feel like the old Tour de France. I mean, we still saw massive crowds out on the road and the stage, and we've seen it all race. It just begs the question, like, are the COVID protocols still the same in terms of what was the stance regarding to, like, say, vaccinations coming into the tour? Because I know, like, for the Olympics, like, everyone has to be vaccinated. Is it different with ASO?
Well, with the Olympics, that's an Australian Olympic Committee rule.
Right.
You can go to the Olympics without being vaccinated. That's an Australian Olympic rule. There's no vaccines are not mandatory. With our staff here, we've had all bar 3 who've been vaccinated, and they're the 3 younger staff in their 30s. So, and they've had vaccination appointments on while the tour has been on, so they'll get their first jab when we get home. But everyone else, we've got staff, we've 22 staff, and all bar 3 have had at least 1 jab, and half of those have had 2. Riders, I think we've had half our guys have been vaccinated. But there's, we're recommending it, but if the guys don't want to get it, they don't get it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's normal crowds. It's normal crowds. It's not compulsory now in France to wear a mask outside. Inside, it is. But it really does feel like the normal Tour de France, but without seeing most people's faces. We spoke about it at the start of the race. People over here have missed a lot of sport in the last 12 months, and there isn't a sport like cycling that's free that comes past where their school holidays are on here in France, and it's great to see the crowds back.
And are they still doing like the bubble type scenario, and the rest day testing and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah. So we're limited to 30 people, a 30-person bubble. If someone wants to come into the bubble, they can only come in on the 2 rest days, but they've also got to have a 6-day test from arrival, 3-day test from arrival, and a test on site before they're allowed to enter the bubble. And then the riders got tested all on 6-day, 3-day, and then 5 days in, which obviously everyone in the race was negative. And then everyone gets tested again tomorrow on the rest day. That's all 700-800 people. And then again, the second rest day. So I think for us here, the risky part of getting COVID is your travel. It's a lot safer than it was 12 months ago as well. You could get on a flight last year and it wasn't even compulsory to have a PCR test before you got on the flight. Whereas now, you've got to have a PCR test or a rapid test before you get on any flight in Europe. And once you're in the bubble, we're only associating with people who we know who have been tested. So we feel pretty safe here on the race, especially once you get through that first test. And look, it's not an impregnable bubble, but at the end of the day, where the difference over here in Europe compared to Australia is people have learned to live with it. And you can take as much precautions as you can, but life is carrying on pretty much as normal over here, even though it is in the general public.
And I was going to say, what are the COVID situations been like in the hotels? What's been the rules? Was it like last year where you still had other guests there in some of the races, or is it just for the teams?
It's been pretty good so far. It's been pretty good so far. We've I think once we had to share. Well, the riders have their own eating area every day, so the riders, we don't eat with the riders either. So the riders, we've got a chef. And they've got their own dining room every single day. And then the staff, there's been once or twice that we've had to share an eating area with other people, but we just don't. If there's a buffet, we won't touch it. We'll go and get the other people's food or whatever, as in Nikki's food and other stuff. So, or take real big precautions. So the studies have also shown it. The virus it's an airborne virus. So even touching something that someone else has touched, even if they did have it, as long as you're using hand sanitizer after you touch stuff, the risk is extremely low. So we always sit in separate areas, nowhere near general public. If by the odd chance that we have got general public at the hotel where I'm at the moment in the mountains, we're the only team staying here. So it's just our 30 people and 3 or 4 hotel staff. That's it.
Last one on me on COVID, because we don't like talking about it, is. And it's intrigued me. Is like, how do the UCI then deem like a close contact? So, say if a staff member or a rider tests positive, like then how do they determine? All right, you guys have to go because you're close contacts. How does that work?
Only people who are rooming together.
Okay,
that's it.
Yeah, all right, that's it. I'm done on COVID. What else ensues?
Oh, mate, I've been over it. I've been over it for more than a year, mate. Don't worry.
But everything else, like obviously you said, the weather conditions are pretty bad, and it's been a big block. I mean, how's the general vibe among the group, given it's been a difficult race so far?
It's been a difficult race, but besides Armand, who was pretty banged up from day one, he's on the mend. All the other boys are healthy, and no, the morale's good. There's a lot of racing still to come, and but I thought summer was back a couple of days ago, but today we're going to have, I think, maximum of 12 or 13 degrees and as low as 4. So it's the first week of July. And I think the general trend this year is I think the guys are pretty sick of racing in the rain. I think the guys who did the Giro, the guys in spring, we've had a pretty average run weather-wise this year. Spring has really lingered on, and I think the guys are looking forward to some nice sunny weather. When we get out, look, we're in the mountains now. I think when we get out of here in a couple of days' time, we're in the south of France where the weather has been 30 degrees plus every single day. And I know talking to home yesterday, it was 38 degrees at my house yesterday, or close to. So it's warm in Spain, it's warm in southern France, and but the guys are a bit sick of racing in winter conditions or freezing conditions in the first week of July.
That was part 1 of the chat with Matt White. I think there's only about 4 minutes to go for part 2. Might as well knock that over, recap that, and wrap the show. Sounds like a plan.
You must have been pretty pleased with Michael Matthews yesterday. He went second in that intermediate sprint, gained a stack more points, and today it looks like a day where he can do that again. How's he looking? How's he feeling?
Good. Like we've got to approach it in a different way. We've got to pick up points where Cav can't. And at the end of the day, we're just going to keep chipping away at that tally and hope also next week that a break can take on one of those sprint stages, take the big points away from the sprinters and even infiltrate that. Michael's not going to be able to go anywhere. Obviously, Quick Step will mark him out of any breakaway. But it's hard for them to mark him out of these intermediate sprints when there's climbs before them. But at the end of the day, for us to win the green jersey, Cav's going to have to blow. And Cav is certainly back. He's got his sprint mojo, but people don't forget that Cav wasn't preparing for the Tour de France before he came in here. So I don't think he hasn't done a World Tour race this year. So it's going to be interesting to see how he handles the fatigue of getting through the Alps and the Pyrenees for a guy who wasn't preparing or hasn't ridden the Grand Tour for a couple of years and certainly hasn't been preparing for the Tour de France, being a late inclusion for Sam Bennett.
Is one of the hurdles with the time cut the fact that the gruppettos are so big because there are so many guys that are banged up? I mean, what's the cutoff for group sizes? Don't they sort of let them go if there's 50 or 60 in a gruppetto, or is they going to come down hard?
It used to be like that, Jonesy. And then because guys were manipulating that by having big groups, they changed it. So they've increased the time cuts, and they're all obviously on scale on how fast the race is, what categorized climbs are in there, and the percentage of the winning time. But if you're outside the time limit, that's it. And if they have to throw 50 blokes home, they'll throw 50 blokes home. But usually they're all doable unless you are on a real bad day and you can't handle the group.
Yeah. Well, breaking news with sprinters that are struggling. I just got a message. Robbie McEwen, he's had a tumble. He's on the green whistle around Sydney. So hope he's gone down like a bagger. And he said he stepped off to avoid landing on a kid, badly twisted knee, second-hand ACL for sale. So I think it's obviously a shame that he's had a bingle, but when Robbie used to work at Green Edge, he used to love riding when he was working, and that has its challenges because you sort of run into a bit of the danger side of things, and live and learn. You just have to go for a run instead.
Oh, his commentary might be entertaining if he takes that green whistle into the studio.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Exactly.
Some great insights.
Now, I'm really looking forward to tonight's stage, especially the way this tour has gone. It's a pretty tough one. And now that you've said about the weather conditions, I see that we're getting Pogacar. He doesn't mind the cold and miserable conditions. He says he feels he does some of his best rides. So he's going to be a hard man to beat tonight, being a mountaintop finish.
Yeah, I'd expect another breakaway today. There's so many guys off GC that there'll be a break, and he'll only do what he needs to do, which is cover a handful of key guys. Whether he's going to go on the attack again today, it's a long climb up to the line, 20-kilometre climb. But he'll stick around his team as long as they can, and then he'll just move when he needs to. So I don't know if he's going to rub salt into the wound today or just save his energy for what's to come.
All right, mate. Well, last question before you go. What was the food like last night? Stews or something sort of that warm dish?
There was actually a bit of a potato casserole. We are up in the mountains here, and some good cheeses. Some good cheeses there, Jonesy. So it's been pretty good. It's been pretty good. It's not the Giro, but when in Rome.
Yeah, perfect.
When in France.
Yeah. All the best today, mate, and look forward to a well-deserved rest day tomorrow, mate. It's been a full-on 8 stages so far, and you guys deserve a day off for sure. We'll be checking in to see how you're doing.
Yeah, cheers, mate. No, I feel like I'm in the end of the second week, not the end of the first, mate. The bag's under my eyes.
You're all right, mate.
If you do have to check in with the boss, to give Jerry a call, he should be in good spirits because St Kilda have given Collingwood an absolute pasting.
I saw Melbourne Storm put 46 points on the Roosters.
Yeah, happy about that too.
Ago as well. So big weekend.
Yeah, but you know why Storm win, Whitey? Culture.
They are a very tight unit. They are a very tight unit.
Good
all
stuff,
right,
mate.
All right,
mate. See you, mate.
See you, Matty.
Thanks again to Matt White. Always entertaining when you catch up with Whitey. You made a good point, Scooter. Like Robbie McEwen with a green whistle. Imagine the viewers. It would shatter all records if he just went in there red hot.
Well, is he going to be in there? Let's hope he is. I imagine that, John, in your defence, because you're talking about the green whistle and he's really damaged, he's hurt, he's injured, and then you were quickly moving on about, well, it's going to be an exciting stage tonight. So I imagine that you actually heard about Robbie well in advance. So you've already gone through the process. Oh, gee, I feel bad for the guy. You know, he's really hurt himself. Because you just need to just move on. Like, oh, well, hey, it's going to be a good stage tonight.
Another whack. Empathy. What is this word, empathy?
That's right.
Yeah, John Trump. No, well, it's a shame. I feel bad for him. So that's not a great situation at all. Because look, when you break it down as well in terms of commentary and expert commentary, etc., Robbie's great. Robbie, you want to have Robbie's insight because he's been there. He's done so much in his career, and it's not that he has done so much. He actually understands how to articulate it. So he knows the craft of commentary, and he knows how to actually explain the thoughts and the inner process that's going on within the race and within the minds of these athletes. And that's what I really appreciate from Robbie when he is in that commentary position. So hopefully he is going to be okay. And, perhaps with the green whistle, I would like to see that for one stage, maybe. Maybe not more than that. Maybe not more than that.
He'll probably be kicked off air forever.
and you thought that they threw the book at that fan on the side of the road with criminal action. Imagine Robbie's green whistle experiment. Jeez.
Yeah. Hey, what was the outcome of that? Because I heard that they dropped the charges. Is that? And then someone asked me that they actually were going to go through the process with her. Do we know any more?
My whole take on it now. I was pretty steaming early, but I think she's been through enough. Like the gut shot is like she's been through enough. Like it was worldwide exposure. They were hunting her down. She's clearly put her hand up and said, obviously stuffed up, and I think she's really struggling with it. But I just don't see what's going to achieve finding her $15,000 and all this sort of stuff because people move on.
She spent 2 days in the slammer.
Yeah,
she's got out, but they have not dropped the charges, and they're talking about a major fine. I hope that they don't fine her. Actually, I think it's gone far enough. I've seen actually a lot worse acts. With idiots on the side of the road where they're running them and causing them to fall. This wasn't a malicious act. It was stupid, but it wasn't a malicious act. But anyway, we'll see what happens.
I don't know.
Well, there were two things. Sorry, Dan. There were two things yesterday on yesterday's stage. where, and I agree, like a $15,000 fine. You think about the damages, yeah, okay. Riders were, had to pull out of the race. It was a terrible, terrible thing that we saw, but there was no malice in it. She wasn't there trying to cause an accident. She was just stupid, right? It was a really stupid thing to do. On yesterday's stage, there was someone else with a cardboard sign that was stepping out onto the road, but it was on an uphill. Right, so they weren't in the way of anyone, but they did exactly the same thing. They were facing the cameras as they came past with their back to the riders, but there was just so much more road for them to work with. It was also a stupid thing to do, and you would think that they would have learnt the lesson from what happened to her. But I think and then also actually on one of your comments, Samantha asked about the bottle. Did anyone else see the bottle that rolled across the road yesterday that almost took out Dylan Teuns? Which I did actually notice, and it was just a normal water bottle, like just a general, wasn't a bit on or anything, but it rolled across the road in the last 50 metres, and he sort of swerved, looked down at it, and then just did his victory salute. Now that's also just a stupid thing that someone's let a bottle loose, by accident. Maybe $1,000 fine or a $2,000 fine for these sort of acts of stupidity. But there is no malice. People aren't throwing water bottles at riders, and they're not stepping out in front of the peloton to try and cause a crash. So I think you do need to give her a fine, because that is a precedent that gets set, that you can just start fining everybody that does something stupid in the future. If you let her off, then that's the other precedent you don't want to set, isn't it? We can do these and just keep doing it. We'll risk it. We don't want people to think that they can risk that kind of behaviour, because look at the outcome.
My brain always ventures down like a bit of a rabbit hole, and I think, what if I was that person and did something stupid? Could I get away with it? Like I was thinking straight away, like I'd buy, 2 crates of baked beans, all this long life milk, 12 boxes of cereal, and just take off. Just go bush, leave a note on the sign on the back of the cardboard sign out, it just says "catch me," and just go.
No, that happened. That did happen, and they did catch him. That was the Unabomber.
I just watched that on Netflix. Yeah,
cabin in the woods, mate, but they still got him. So mate, you get done, mate.
All right, well, it's been a long show, but I've got one more question. And John, feel free to get your one word out, because I know it's something you're passionate about, particularly in Australia. Stuart McIntosh says, interesting to hear COVID jabs not compulsory for the riders. What a risk for teams to manage. Imagine Pogacar testing positive and he is rubbed out, all for the sake of not consenting to a jab. How's the vaccine going in Australia, John?
Well, the Prime Minister, he's got a roadmap. That's great. He's actually got a roadmap. It's only taking him, I don't know how, a year and a half to come up with a roadmap. It's not hard. PM and all you politicians, get vaccinated. It's as simple as that. Get vaccinated and we're all okay.
All right.
Yeah, his roadmap, so we're all on Google Maps, right? We're on digital form. Scott Morrison, our Prime Minister, his map is actually hard copy. I think he's on a Melways still. He's actually turning the pages to try and find out which way to get going forward.
Where are we going? Bloody D12, I told you. All right. Well, that wraps another big episode of The Detour. Get behind it, youtube.com/The Detour Podcast. Tell your mates, like, share, subscribe, and good to have you back, Scooter.
Yeah,
our picks. I love you too, Scooter. Our picks. I'm going for Aussie Richie Port today from the break.
Yep.
Bloody you're right. I think Pogacar is going to just send him another clear message, and he'll be another few minutes in front today. But yeah, Richie would be great. Wouldn't it? That'd be a good company. He's 22. Is he at 22 minutes now? I think. Yeah. So he's 22 minutes down. So he could actually slip into that break. Although 2006, Oscar Pereiro, 20 minutes behind with about 6 stages or 7 stages to go, went in the break. No one took control. He took back 20 minutes, ended up winning the Tour. From 20 minutes down on GC, came back to win the Tour in 2006.
Someone did that back in 1908 as well, but anyway, another story.
I just got a text from Robbie McEwen. He said his stage 9 tip is Jan Ulrich. All right. On that note, we'll see you later, boys.